So today's topic, friends, is tactics and hacks of real estate hot markets. Okay, so we're going to be covering the top rental markets, the top flipping markets, because when you get into real estate, you only have three exit strategies. Okay, you either wholesale the property for a quick profit, you either buy it, hold it, and rent it, or when you buy it, you fix it and then you flip it. So those are your only three exit strategies, okay? So at this point, we are going to be talking about, we're gonna be focusing on rentals and flip markets. So I'm gonna pull up ChicagoDealVault. Okay, friends, so we are going to go over area reports. So this is how we have them categorized in ChicagoDealVault, friends. And we're gonna go over some of the details that are very simple, but at the same time very critical for you to understand. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that real estate investors make is to invest in the wrong areas, or if they're trying to do fix and flip, they need to invest in a flipping market, but yet they invest in a rental market, or vice versa. They want to do a rental, but guess what? They invest in a flipping market. Okay, so I'm going to go over certain metrics and pointers that you need to understand to identify great upcoming markets. One tip of advice is that you need to stay within a 10 to 15 mile radius. So I'm going to show you a website that is going to allow you to draw maps. Okay, not only maps, but radius. Okay. And this is actually from Google. Okay, so I'm going to send all of you this URL because I want to make sure that you draw a radius based on where you live. So here I just send this link to everyone, okay? So the way it works, I'm gonna put an address, 4740 North Cumberland Avenue, Chicago, okay? And then we're gonna do 10-mile radius, okay? New circle, boom. Okay, so why is this so critical, friends? The objective is for you to focus in a 10 to 15 mile radius when you invest in real estate. Why? Because the minute you start going farther away than 15 miles, the rehabs, the rentals, the flips are not manageable. Okay, you're gonna be spending over an hour on the road. Okay, you're not gonna be able to make it on time. To talk to contractors, see tenants, inspectors, and so forth. So make sure that you invest within a 10, 15 mile radius, whatever you feel comfortable with. Because let me tell you, there are great markets in your neighborhood, and I'm gonna show you how to find them, okay? So the first step is for sure to draw the map. I sent everyone the link, so you should, since you're on the computer, try that, okay? Draw a map, and then once you draw the map, you're gonna zoom in a bit, okay? To the point that you're able to see the villages. Okay, so the address that I put is in Norwich in Chicago, right here, where the dot is, right in the middle, Norwich. Okay, so the way to identify great markets in your radius is to pretty much go over every single one: Rosemont, Park Ridge, Des Plaines, Wooddale, Itasca, and so forth. You need you need to become very familiar with every single market in your surrounding, okay? But before you become familiar with them, within your neighborhoods, you need to understand what exit strategies you're going to be pursuing in real estate, okay? Let me just give you a quick summary. True wealth in real estate is achieved by owning rentals. So the best strategy that you can think of in real estate is buy and hold. So you buy the property, fix it, and rent it, okay? Why is that? Because you have tenants paying for your property, paying for the utilities, maintenance, everything, right? And then fix and flip and wholesale. The problem with those strategies is that if you, for whatever reason, stop doing it, guess what? Your income goes down to zero. Your net worth does not increase year after year. So that is a drawback. So you can do a mix and match. You can combine rentals with fix and flips or wholesales. That is very much acceptable. Personally, I do not like flips that much. We've only done 3 flips. The reason why is because, in my opinion, they're too risky. You need to make sure that you get the ARV right, that you stay within budget for the rehab, and that you buy the property for the right price. If you miss any of those 3 numbers, guess what? That's going to eat up your profit. So that is why, to me, flips are very risky. And then not only that, but you need to do them in the right swing market. What do I mean by that? So you need to buy the property like in the fall, winter, so that by the spring, summer, the property is ready to be put on the market, okay? Because otherwise, if you want to do a flip in the winter or during the holidays in the fall, it's going to be very difficult to sell it. And if you end up selling the property, you're going to sell it for less, okay? Whereas if you put the property for sale in the spring or the summer, you're going to be making a lot more money, okay? So having said that, now that's just the basics, foundations, okay? Make sure that you understand what your exit strategy or strategies are going to be, okay? Now, draw the map, okay? I send you all the link. Once you draw the map, then we're going to go into ChicagoDealVault, okay? And then we're going to be clicking on, we have 2 ways of doing it, okay? So I'm going to show you the shortcuts for you to quickly identify great markets for flips and for rentals, okay? So once you drew the map, this is what we did ourselves. We went over every single city that is highlighted, like Franklin Park, Bensenville. So let me show you what you need to look at. For instance, I'm gonna type in Franklin. Okay, Franklin, and then search, okay? Okay, so here we have Franklin Park. Let me move this so the windows. So I'm gonna open up the report. So I'm gonna show you what to look for in these area reports, okay? So we've done pretty much all the research for you so that you can analyze and see what the area is all about in just few minutes, okay? You don't need to do driving for dollars. All you need to do is identify key factors for this area. So let's just quickly go over Franklin Park, okay? One of the things that you need to look at that is so critical in the geographic location is, are there any factors that are going to affect your property value, like train tracks, rivers, right? Airports, cemeteries, busy intersections. So right here, we're going to list some of the factors that you need to be aware because they are going to affect your property values, okay? And then in the area in a nutshell, I'm just going to give you the shortcut. Any area that has a livability score over 70%, it's a great area for both flips and rentals. That's it in a nutshell, okay? So here you're going to get the summary visually of the components for an area, like amenities, cost of living, crime, education, employment, housing, okay? So you can go deep down into every single one of them. I will quickly show you what you need to look at. When you look at the crime, the red line is the average. So ideally, the bars are below the red line, and then the schools are in red, yellow, or black markers. So if the markers are black, it means that the schools are decent. If they were not, they would be like yellow. Okay, so as you can see, outside Franklin Park, there are some red and yellow. They're not good. Okay, these are not good schools. They're rated very low. But if they're black or gray, they're better. And I'm going to show you a shortcut in ChicagoDealVault how you can, at the property level, identify what the schools belong to that property. Okay. So next, this is where it starts to get really interesting. Household income. Okay, one of the things that you need to understand is that you want to stay in areas that are not depressed. Okay, you want to focus on areas, we categorize them A, B, C, D. So A is the most desirable area and obviously the most expensive. D are the areas that are the most challenging. Okay, where potentially your neighbors think that your car is theirs, or your safety is a risk, right? So just saying, those areas, you need to be careful. So we want to focus on BC areas, okay? How do you identify whether this is a BC area? Well, there are many factors. One of them is household income. When you go to depressed areas, the household income is way below the average. So the Illinois median household income is 57. When you go to depressed areas, is somewhere in the 14, 15, 16, 20,000. It's almost below the poverty level, okay? So that is something very critical, because if you go to a depressed area, you're not gonna have collectible tenants, or you're not gonna be able to command top dollars for your flips, okay? So that is so critical. Not only that, but appreciation in those areas is gonna be lagging behind. Okay, so make sure that you pay attention to the household income. The population, that is also a very critical factor, okay? You wanna be in areas where people are moving into, okay? So the population growth is going to be positive. There are areas that are depressed, and guess what? Guess what happens to the population? They move away. Okay, so that is something very, very important. If the population growth is very negative, we see as low as 30, 45%, and that is something not good, right? Because then you don't have a good infrastructure, collectible tenants, people to buy your properties. Industry is just going to give you a breakdown of the employers. What employers are in this area. Then within housing occupancy, I'm going to show you there are only three metrics that are very critical. One of them is owner occupancy, is the third one down. It is 67. So the higher the owner occupancy, the higher the pride of ownership. Okay, so that is really, really good. Then renter occupancy, it's only 24%. And then vacancy, it's 827. So you want to target areas where the vacancy rate is less than 10%. When you start going into areas where the vacancies are 10, 15, 20%, you're going to end up with at least actually 2 to 3 months of vacancy, okay? So please try to focus on areas where the vacancy rate is less than 10% if you are pursuing a rental approach in that area, okay? And then right here, we summarize the area. So Franklin Park, it's a B area, okay? So we're gonna be focusing for flips and rentals, BC areas. And then the cash flow is the approach that we recommend. So all you need to do is just come down to the conclusions, and we'll give you a summary of everything that we just described up above. But I just wanted to go into detail so that you understand, okay? Aside from looking into the conclusions, you need to understand the numbers. Now, this is where the most interesting piece of the market analysis comes into the picture, okay? It is so simple, friends, but yet most investors do not understand, okay? So we've done the sales market analysis for every single area in the last year, okay? We're gonna divide that by the property type. So you have multi-unit properties, attached means condos, townhomes, duplexes, okay? And then detached means single family homes, okay? Something that is really, really critical here, friends, is by looking at this data, and I'm gonna show you just key indicators for you to identify if it's a flipping market or if it's a rental market. And that is very, very important, okay? When we started in real estate, we tried to do a flip in a rental market. Guess what happened? We could not sell it, okay? So I'm gonna show you how you can easily distinguish between a flipping and a rental market, okay? So right here, I'm gonna explain to you what's a great flipping market, okay? How would you know that it's a great flipping market? Let me tell you. The key is that in a flipping market, properties are going to be selling very, very fast. That's a flipping market, okay? A market where the properties sit for 90, 120, 3, 4, 5 months, it's not a flipping market. You're going to be seeing flipping markets, the properties tend to stay in the market for not so long. Not only that, but the inventory supply is very low, okay? We're gonna be looking at some really high flipping markets. Franklin Park is not one of them, but I just want you to understand the concepts, okay? So in here, we give you some stats. The number of properties sold in the last year, as you can see, 235. So as you can see, right off the bat, single family homes, it's what's moving, okay, in Franklin Park. Now, active listings, that is sort of the inventory, okay? There are not too many properties for sale in Franklin Park, okay? In fact, if I go all the way up to the beginning, I'm gonna show you in the area as in a nutshell, right here. Do you see the F right here for housing? What that means is that everything is cool in Franklin Park, right? Amenities, cost of living, crime, education is great, employment so-so, but there are not enough properties. So the housing supply is not enough to fulfill the demand. That is why it's rated as F. So that explains right here why there are not too many properties for sale in Franklin Park. So there were only 39 active listings, okay, at one point. Now, this is really critical, friends, absorption rate. So what does that mean? That means how quickly properties are selling in a month. In this case, the higher the absorption rate, the better. Why? What does that mean? That means that in the last 12 months, in 1 month, 20 properties sold. Okay, that's what it means. So when at the end of 1 month, 20 properties closed. And then the next indicator, it is so critical, months of housing supply. So let's assume, what this means is, assume that there are no new properties coming into the market for sale, okay? We're just gonna lock down the inventory. Now the question is, based on how quickly properties sell on a monthly basis, in this case, Franklin Park sells about 20 single family homes a month. Now, based on the inventory of only 39 properties, how many months would it take before we run out of inventory in Franklin Park? Does that make sense? So the lower, the better. In this case, in 2 months, all the inventory of single family homes for sale is gonna run out. The assumption is that no new properties are coming in the market for sale. So having said that, that means that properties are moving very fast and there are not too many single family homes. So now if I scroll down, look at this, number of flips, 10 flips. So if you think about it, people who buy properties, single family homes in Franklin Park, 1 out of 2 people is gonna do a flip. Okay, because they're selling about 20 properties a month, and out of 20 properties, guess what? 10 of them are flips. Are you guys following? So it's a flipping market. So we would consider this a hot flipping market for single family homes. Why? Because if you happen to buy a single family home in Franklin Park, there's going to be a great demand for it. Why? Because the supply is low. So if you decide to buy and hold, that's awesome because the rents are high. That is why we rate this neighborhood as cash flow. Okay. Should you decide to do a flip, guess what? If it's a single family home, you're going to be able to sell it. You're going to be able to flip the property. Now, how long is the property going to stay in the market? Right here. So right here, we have the indicator average sold market time. So it's going to stay in the market for about 2 months, a little bit, 2.5 months. Okay. So when you do your flip analysis, the holding time and carrying cost, you need to account for at least 2.5 months just for market time, okay? Plus, you need to account for the rehab time. So if your rehab takes about a month, month and a half, that means that your overall carrying holding expenses, you need to account for at least 4 months, okay? 2.5 months for market time and 1.5 for rehab. So the overall, if you're gonna do a deal in Franklin Park for a flip, it's gonna be on the market for about 4 months, including the rehab, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's talk about this number that is so critical. That's why we put in green. How much should you pay for a single family home? Because this is so important, right? You don't want to overpay for properties. And that's the second mistake that most investors make. Overpay for properties. So in this case, you should not pay more than 180 for a single family home in Franklin Park, okay? And you should sell it for over 182,000, okay? And then we also give you the stats on the distressed inventory that is or active and unsold. So as you can see, there's still a lot of distressed inventory in Franklin Park. So meaning a lot of pre-foreclosures, bank-owned properties, short sales. So it's a great both flipping and rental market. Now, we're going to give you the conclusion right here. Everything that we discussed up above, it's going to be summarized right here, okay? Now, let's get into the rental market analysis. So we do exactly the same thing. So as you can see, look at this, the median rental price is $18.49 in Franklin Park. So it's quite high. They stayed in the market for about 2 months. And then here we're gonna give you the breakdown. So if it's a 2-bedroom, you're gonna be collecting a median between 1,000 to 1,100. If it's a 3-bedroom that is more marketable, you can be asking for about $1,650, okay? And then right below, we're gonna give you the breakdown of the rents. But the summary is rents are high, okay? And they stay in the market for about 2 months. So I wanted to go in detail in this just one report, okay? For you to understand the ins and outs. So we spent, friends, about 15 minutes going over one report. But at this point, you really have a great understanding of what a flipping and rental market is, okay? So that is the objective. You need to understand the area like the back of your hand. And let me tell you something. Every single area has pockets. What do we mean by that, okay? That once you go a street over, guess what? Property prices change. That's something that you need to be aware of. And guess what? Even if you do driving for dollars, you might not be able to recognize once you go a street over, will the property prices change? Will they stay the same? So we're going to be looking at, I'm going to show you how we integrated with Trulia to show you a heat map of some pockets, okay? They focus on crime, okay? So when the crime is high, you're going to be certain pockets where you want to stay away from in some areas. So now that we've done this, let's go back to the example that I gave you. Once you draw the map of where you live, okay, you need to check every single area. And there are not too many. This is going to take you about a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, just to make sure that you understand. Actually, I'm going to rephrase this. You fully understand your area and neighborhoods. Okay, so in this case, we were in Norwich. That's the address that I gave you, or that I put on the for the map. And then we just analyzed Franklin Park. So at this point, I feel very comfortable, very confident, based on like 10-15 minutes that we went over about Franklin Park. So imagine, friends, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, you know what? I've got a wholesale deal in Franklin Park. The first question that you need to ask, is that a single family home or a condo? Because guess what? All the analysis that we did, as you can see, I'm going to go up. The low inventory, everything that is moving is for single family homes or detached. If you go over to the middle column, attached, nothing is happening there. You look at the active listings, only one. So there's not much happening for condos, duplexes, townhomes in Franklin Park. However, the first question is this a single family home that you want to wholesale me? And if they say yes, that's pretty awesome. The next question is, how many bedrooms? Okay, because you saw the difference in rent. For a 2-bedroom, it's about $1,000. For a 3-bedroom, it's $1,650. So it's a big difference, friends. 3-bedroom properties are way more marketable. You're going to be able to command higher rents. You're going to be able to sell them quicker than 2-bedrooms. So 3-bedroom, 2-bath is the sweet spot. Those are the properties that you need to target, okay? 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, they are okay, but the numbers are gonna work way better when you target 3 bedrooms. So let's say that you guys come to me and you say, you know, I have a great wholesale deal in Franklin Park. My first question is, what type of property is that? I wanna hear single family home. My second question is gonna be, how many bedrooms? How many baths? If you say 3-bedroom, 2-bath, basement, now we're talking, okay? My next question, make sure you write this down, is how much, okay? Because remember, you need to buy the property for less than $180,000. So when you look at a property, make sure that you understand whether it's a flipping or rental market. Sorry, when you look at an area, and then understand how quickly properties are moving and understand the rental market. That is so critical, friends. Even, guys, if you are going to do a wholesale, okay, let's assume that you guys want to wholesale properties in Franklin Park. What are the properties that you want to be wholesaling? Are you going to be looking at condos, townhomes, or multi-unit? Of course not, okay? You need to focus on properties that are gonna be moving, that are gonna be selling, because your end buyer, your cash buyer, or your investor buyer will eventually do either a fix and flip or a buy and hold, right? So they need to have meat in the bone. Therefore, you need to be working on single family homes in Franklin Park if you wanna do wholesales. Okay, that's simple. So now, before I continue, I want to take some questions because I've covered quite a lot in the last 20 minutes. So I want to make sure that you fully understand what we're talking about, because this is so critical, friends. Understanding where you invest based on your exit strategy, it is like starting with the right foot, okay? If you don't understand this, you can lose a lot of money. And that happened to us about 2.5 years ago when we started, actually 3 years ago. The rental that we did was in a really bad neighborhood. So let me tell you the problems. We hired the worst contractor, we put in the worst tenant, and not only that, but contractors did not want to go to that neighborhood, okay? They were afraid of their tools getting stolen. It was just a big disaster. And then the tenant never paid a single penny, so we had to do an eviction. Those are the consequences when you do not understand the markets you are buying into, okay? Are there any questions? So there's one question here. How often is this data refreshed? It's every other month. So we have over 300 areas, okay? And we have algorithms in the background that we run. So every other month, the data is refreshed, okay? And then if there is an area that we don't have a report, just send us an email and we'll generate that within 24 hours, okay? Just brand new report, okay? I wanna make sure that all of you have a solid understanding of where you are investing, okay? That is so critical, and I'm emphasizing all the tips that you need to know, okay? Are there any other questions on the line? I wanna make sure that everyone follows what we're talking about here, okay? Just for sakes, I'm gonna pick another area. Can somebody give me another area? There's another question. Is there an analysis done for Chicago neighborhoods? Yes, that's a great question. So for Chicago, we do area analysis or neighborhood. Let me give you an example. So I'm gonna put in like Albany. So for Albany Park, so search right here, Albany. Okay, or let me put Lincoln. Let me see. So we have Lincoln Park, Lincoln Square. These are neighborhoods within Chicago, okay? So we go at the neighborhood level because, like for instance, Lakeview, Lincoln Park, those are neighborhoods within Chicago, but at the same time, they have great population, okay? And those are really hot markets. So let me do another question. Is there plans to expand to Northwest Indiana? Yeah, we're planning on doing Indiana for sure. But if you have certain areas in Indiana that you need help with, please let us know. We're gonna be able, because we have access to the data, we're gonna be able to generate the reports. Now, another question. Can the 1 mile circle do comps? Yes, absolutely. You can run comps on ChicagoDealVault, and the default is a 1 mile radius, okay? But keep in mind, if you are working in the city, sometimes the 1 mile radius may not work. So you might need to go by streets, because once you go over a busy street, west, east, then the property values change. So when you go at the city level, it's a little bit trickier, but yeah, you can change the radius in ChicagoDealVault. I'm gonna show that. So then another question is, okay, so you guys gave me some areas, Lake Zurich, North Lawndale. So we're gonna look at some of those reports next. And then another question is, if you're purchasing a property in Hubzu.com, how to analyze using ChicagoDealVault. Okay, so if you are buying a property in Hubzu, first of all, this is a great question, friends. Let us know before you start the bidding, okay? On any property in the major auctioning platforms like Hubzu.com, Auction.com, Hudson and Marshall, and Williams & Williams. Those are the 4 main auctioning platforms. Once you identify a property, please let us know why, because guess what? We are going to be able to give you most likely what the bank's reserve is, okay? So that's how much the bank is gonna sell it for. On those auctioning sites, most of the times the banks do not disclose that information. We have that information, okay? So we can give you an idea what the bank is gonna sell it for, so that you're aware of it, okay? Because you can enter into a bidding war and end up overpaying for the property, and that's something we don't want you to do, okay? So you can do a power search on a property. So to analyze any property that you want to sell, buy from any of the auctionings, just click on power search, okay? And then put in the address. We're gonna find it, and then we're gonna show the analysis. And just keep in mind, when you put a property, let me just put any address, 4722 South Kedville. Okay, you need to be looking at 3 numbers when you analyze the property. You need to be looking at the after repair value. Okay, so this property, this is a flip that we did. This is just one of the out of the three. Okay, as I told you, I don't like flips. Okay, so one of the things that you need to know when you analyze deals, you need to know three numbers. What's my ARV? Okay, what's the after repair value? Once I make all the repairs, how much can I sell it for? Okay, and then the second number is how much am I gonna put into the property for rehab? Okay, that is very critical. And the third number is how much should I pay for the property? And that's gonna be driven based on your exit strategy. As you can see, the rental maxed allowed offer price is the most forgiving. Why? Because rentals is meant for long term. Okay, so you can afford to pay a little bit more. You don't have the high pressure of a flip, right? Where the rehab for a flip needs to be sort of like high end. If you want to command top dollars, it has to be almost perfect. Okay, that is why when you buy a property for a flip, you need to pay a lot less than if you were to buy it for a rental. And obviously, if you're going to wholesale the property, you need to get it for the lowest possible because you need to leave meat in the bone for the wholesaler and the buyer to do something with it. Okay, so now let's go back to the areas. Okay, so somebody gave me another area, Lake Zurich. Lake Zurich, okay? Let's pull it up, Lake Zurich, open that up. Let's maximize the report. So now we're gonna be looking, friends. At this point, we're not gonna spend 20 minutes on the area. Why? Because at this point, you guys are experts, okay? So let's assume this is a brand new area and you need to do a quick analysis because you got a phone call, right, from a wholesaler and they told you, hey, you know, guess what? I have a great wholesale deal in Lake Zurich. You're gonna say, okay, hold a second, give me 2 minutes, okay? That's all we need, 2 minutes. So the first thing that you're gonna do, friends, look at the area. You need to be aware of the lake, right? Or cemeteries, anything that is going to affect your property values. So the lake, obviously, you don't want to be in a floodplain area. But let's look at the area livability score-wise, 85. So anything over 70, it's awesome. So Lake Zurich is awesome. Look at this. So it's a great area where schools, crime, everything is like awesome, right? Even, you know, household income, look at that. It's like almost double the median household income. Population growth, it's positive, almost 10%. We're all good with that. Industry, so the employment is awesome there. We got an A+ for that. And then vacancy, look, it's 4.29. It is super low. Renter occupancy is only 10% and 84% right here, owner occupancy. The higher, the better, right? So it is just outstanding area. So here, this is a B+ area, actually B+ A. Actually, this is an A area. Now that when I look closer, it's an A area. Okay, we have the L hovering over the B, but this is an A area. We recommend cash flow. But now, friends, at this point, I consider you, all of you on the webinar, experts to identify whether this is a flipping market, a rental market, or what, right? So look at this. As you can see, there's nothing happening for multi-units. Condos and single-family homes is what's moving. But look at this. There's a huge difference between detached and attached. So single-family homes predominate. Okay, therefore, now the next thing that you need to understand is how quickly are properties moving. 54 properties a month. The months of housing supply is 4.65. So 4 months. In 4 months, the whole inventory is going to run out. So remember, the lower, the better. Okay, now how long do they stay in the market if you do a flip? 120 days. That's quite a lot. That's about 3 months. No, actually 4 months in the market. So that's quite a lot that they stay in the market. Therefore, look, is this a flipping market? No way. Okay. Why? Even though it's an affluent area, it's an A area, people are not doing flips there because they tend to stay in the market for 4 months. So who wants to get into an area where the properties are not moving fast enough? Okay. There's a lot of properties for sale. That's the thing, right? Active listings. So properties are moving, but the inventory is high as well. Therefore, this is by no means a flipping market. So only 5 flips. And then something also that to keep in mind, look at the property prices. So when you do flips, friends, you need to stay under 200,000, okay, for a flip. And here the problem is the entry barrier. It's over 400,000, the sweet spot to buy a single family home. So it's expensive. Why? Because this is an A area. So you don't want to do flips in A areas. They're just too risky. Okay. Now let's look at the rental. So they tend to stay in the market for about 60 days, so 2 months, and look at the rents. The rents are very, very strong. 2-bedroom, 1,500. 3-bedroom, I'm sure it's going to go over 1,500. Okay. Close to 1,800. So rents are very high and they stay in the market for 2 months. So it is that simple, friends. So you can analyze any area in just a couple of minutes. So now if somebody comes to you and say, you know, I've got a great deal in Lake Zurich. Well, it's a great area, but they stay in the market for too long, 4 months. Why? Because the property values are too high. Okay. And you don't want to do a flip in when the price range is over 400, because your carrying cost is going to be about 3,000 a month. So every month that the property is vacant, it's going to be costing you no less than 3,000 a month. So just do the math. Properties stay in the market for 4 months, multiply 4 times 3, $12,000 in just carrying cost. Okay, so that is gonna tap into your profit. Therefore, we obviously don't recommend flips in A areas, especially at that price point. Okay, now we're gonna make it so simple for all of you, friends. You know, instead of, you have the option, as I told you, once you draw the circle where you live, then go over every single area, Skokie, Evanston, just everything that shows on the map, just so that you fully understand what's in your surrounding, whether it's a flipping market, it's a rental market. And actually, friends, that would be so cool. If you were to, I'm going to maximize this page. This is what I would suggest if I were you. Once you zoom in into the map, just print this out, okay? And then next to each area, put in a sticky note, flipping market, and how much you should pay for a single family home or a condo, whatever the property type moves, put a sticky note next to it. So you're gonna have a board at home with a full understanding of what's happening near you. What are the upcoming markets near you? So that'll be a really cool exercise for you. Actually, I would like that to be your homework, friends. So now what I want to show you is we've simplified how you can find hot rental markets and hot flipping markets. Because one thing is to draw the radius and go one at a time, because about 2 years ago, one of my questions to Frida was, okay, this is all great, right? So I can go and look up every single town in ChicagoDealVault, right? And go after every single one of them in my surrounding. But I was like, no. This is cool, but I want something even better and faster and quicker. So what would that be? I said, I want to know, give me all the top rental markets. Give me all the best flipping markets. Whether it's in my 10, 15, 20-mile radius, it's a separate story, right? Because I might be comfortable. Let me just give you a perfect example. We have a DealVault member. She works in Oak Park, but she lives in... she lives in Oak Park and works in Schaumburg, right? So it's a big distance. So if she was to do the 10-mile radius around Oak Park, she wouldn't hit Schaumburg. Okay, Schaumburg is way too far from Oak Park. But if she commutes to Schaumburg every single day, then wouldn't you think that she can do a deal maybe in Streamwood or Chambord? Of course, right? So then sometimes you need to have an open mind and then say, just give me the top rental markets, because guess what? You may live in Oak Park, but one of the top rental market might be Streamwood. And guess what? You happen to work in Chambord, which is right next to Streamwood. Does that make sense, friends? So this is how you can do it. Let me show you. So first of all, once you come into here, I'm gonna clear these. And then remember, we categorize the areas by A, B, C, D. A being the most expensive, like Lake Zurich. We don't like to do rentals or flips there because it's just too risky, right? The numbers are way too high. So the property prices are way too high and the rents won't pay for the operating expenses, okay? So that is why we try to stick to B and C areas. And D, safety is a risk. We tend not to go to the D areas. So we like to be in B, C areas. So for now, let's just click on B. We're gonna do a combination, okay? And then the approach. What are you guys gonna do? Do you wanna do flips? Do you wanna do rentals? Or you could do both. You could do a combination. So let's assume that for now, I told you that the true wealth in real estate is owning rentals. Why? Because you're not running on the treadmill. Your tenants are. If you stop working, it's okay. Why? Because you have passive income coming from rentals and your tenants are paying for not only all the expenses, the utilities, and your cash flowing. Does that make sense? That is absolutely the way to go in real estate. And to add on, try to pay them off in less than 10 years, okay? With the excess cash flow, apply that towards the principal. That's the ideal scenario. Okay, so what I did is I selected the B area and then I just wanna find the top rental markets. So what's gonna be, let me click on search. So what's a top rental market? Very, very simple, friends. What does that tell you? That you want to collect the highest rents possible, but yet you want to pay the least amount of money for the property. Does that make sense? Because guess what? They're going to be, if you go downtown Chicago, right? The rents are over $2,500, right? Even for a studio, a one bedroom. But guess what? Yeah, fine. You're collecting high rents, but the entry barrier to purchase a property is over $500,000. So does that make sense? Of course not, right? So you want to find the sweet spot. You want to get into areas where the rents are strong. What do we mean by strong? Where you can rent a 3-bedroom for over $1,800. That's a very strong rental market. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, renting for over $1,800. And where the purchase price is still below $200,000. So how do you find those areas? Very simple. Okay, so the way to do that is, once you got the search, we got a lot of areas. So 9 pages of these. So we got way too many areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the column that says rental income 3-bedroom. Okay, so this allows you to sort from, I'm gonna click again on it, the rents that are the highest to the lowest, okay? So once you have these, then you also need to look at this column that says sweet spot to buy a single family home. So in this case, look at this, Evanston, right? It's at the top. Rents in Evanston are very high. However, purchase property prices are also very high. So it doesn't make sense, right? And friends, I'm gonna give you a tip, a rule of thumb that works amazing. It's called the 1% rule of thumb. What does that mean? What it means is that you take the purchase price, in this case, $525, and then you multiply that by 1%. So what's 1% of $500,000? It's $5,250. So what does that mean? That means that if you purchase a property of $500,000, you need to collect at least $5,000 in rent. If you don't, guess what? Your rent will not pay for your operating expenses. What I mean by operating expenses are your and your debt service. So you're not going to be able to pay for the mortgage, your utilities, maintenance, and so forth. So you want to make sure that when you buy a property, do the 1% all the time. If you buy it for 200,000, you should be collecting at least 200,000. Okay. So now let's go down the list. These properties are way too expensive, 350, 420. But look at this one. This is the sweet spot is 157, but yet look how much money you're collecting in rent, 2,100. So what does this tell you, friend? So this is what area? This is Berkeley. So Berkeley, the entry point for a single family home is less than 160. And look at the rent. So it's super, super strong. Now let's continue to go down. This one, 160,000, and the rent is 1950. That is Hillside. So right off the bat, we found two great, like top rental market, Berkeley and Hillside. Now, you might be, for instance, 15 or 16 miles away from Hillside or Berkeley. But the question is it worth it? Is it worth buying a property in a top rental market if you drive maybe an extra 5 to 10 minutes? Of course, perhaps yes, right? So that is why once you do your radios, make sure that you come into DealVault and identify the top rental markets because they might be a block away from your neighborhood. Does that make sense? So make sure that you understand that you need to be looking at two columns, the rent, and then we can continue to go to the next page. Okay. So the next page, this catches my eye, 186,000. So this is Bridgeview. Okay, Bridgeview, the property prices are still very reasonable, under 100,000, 200,000, and the rents are high, 15. So we can just go down the list. There's another one, 149, Old Zip, 149,000 friends, and the rent is 1,800. So far, we have identified the top 4 rental markets: Berkeley, Bridgeview, Old Zip, Hillside. So number 1, Berkeley. Number 2, Hillside. Number 2, Bridgeview. Number 4, Old Zip. And that is based on rental market and also property prices. Okay. And then let's just find the next, the 5th top market. Okay. I'm going to go to the next page. Let me see, 213. Let me go to the next one. I want to find another. Oh, here we go. We found 2 of them right here. So this is Streamwood and Franklin Park. Okay, friends, what a coincidence. So 5th top rental market is Streamwood. Okay, so the sweet spot to buy is 189, and then the rents are 1650. And in fact, friends, we just recently did a property in Streamwood. We took all of you to that property before and after the rehab. So we purchased the property for 130, and the rehab was about 25. So all in was 155. 155, 160, which is below the sweet spot. And we rented the property for 1740. Okay, so Streamwood is number 6 top rental market. Okay, so you see how easy that is, friends. So for instance, the example that I gave you, somebody lives in Oak Park, but they work in Schaumburg. Streamwood is right next to Schaumburg. Okay, so it might not be in your 15-mile radius from where you live, but it might be a mile away from where you work. Does that make sense? So if you do a rental in a Streamwood, it's just going to work really, really good because your acquisition cost is still very reasonable compared to the rents you're going to be collecting. And the next one happens to be the one that we just analyzed, Franklin Park. Why? Because you can still buy a property for under 200,000 and the rents are strong. Okay, so is this making sense, friends? I want to make sure that you're following, because this is so critical that you understand. Okay, so there are a couple of questions. One question is, sweet spot the average sales price? Okay, that's a great question. The question is the sweet spot the average? No, it's not the average. It is the mean. Okay, and there's a big difference, friends, between the average and the mean. Okay, this gets into more of a statistics concept, but you've got to understand. So what is the difference between the average and the mean? Very simple. The average takes into account the outliers. What does that mean? Let me give you an example. So we're going to take all the property prices that are active, let's say in Franklin Park. There are going to be properties that are maybe $500,000, but most of them are 200,000. So when you average them out, guess what? The outlier is just going to screw up the average. So you have one property that happens to be a mansion for 500,000, but most of them are 200,000. So when you factor the $500,000 with the other ones that are 200,000, then your average is not going to be 200,000. Your average is going to be bumped up to maybe 250, 270. Does that make sense? So using the average is not a good idea, because you're going to factor in the outliers, either a property that is way too high, like a mansion, or a dump, something that is just so distressed that they gave it away almost. Let's say for 50,000, where most of the properties are selling for 200,000, right? So you need to remove the outliers. So the mean, you remove the outliers. So we're going to remove the $500,000 property and the $50,000 dollar property. So the mean is going to be 200,000. Therefore, when you look at property values, you need to be looking at the mean, friends, not the average. Okay, and there are many areas where they built up mansions, but most of the properties are not. Okay, so if we take those property values into account, it's going to mess up your average. Your numbers are going to be all screwed up. So never, ever use average. Always use the mean to remove the outliers, either the distressed properties or the mansions. Okay, I just want to make sure that that is very clear. So it's not the average. Sweet spot to buy the property is the mean. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so now let me show you. We have identified the hot rental markets. Now, let's do we can do the same for the C area. So the ones that I gave you were C areas. So you can do exactly the same thing, but for the C areas. So top C rental markets. So all you need to do, again, filter by rents, and then just go down the sweet spot to buy. So in this case, 300 to 200. Oh, here, 182, and the rents are 1,700. And this is Chicago Ridge. Okay, there's another one. C area, this is Worth. Okay, where the property value is 184, rents are 1,700. And then, so this is another one, 198, the rents are 1,600. This is Justice. Some of these areas are way too far, like Worth, okay? So even if they are very strong rental markets, these markets might be way farther away from your 10 or 15 mile radius, okay? So you need to skip them, right? Because you're gonna be struggling getting contractors, getting inspectors and so forth to go really far away. Okay, people like to work within a reasonable radius or mileage. So keep that in mind. And guess what? We can do exactly the same thing for the flipping markets. Okay, so just put in B areas and flip. So search. And then here for the flips, what we're going to be looking at is, well, one thing that you need to be looking at is the rental doesn't really matter for the flip because you're just going to sell the property, but sweet spot to buy, okay? So you can search by the really most expensive, even within a B area, okay? So near north side, you know, forget it. So we're going to sort by cheapest to most expensive. South Holland, Homewood, Crestwood, Oaklawn. So these are hot flipping markets, okay? They're going to be really hot, friends. Why? Because when the purchase price is less than 200,000, most people can afford them, okay? So there are going to be a lot of competition and a lot of flips in these areas, but it's okay, okay? So we're just going to pull up an area. I'm going to pull up Oaklawn, okay? Because the purchase price is less than 200,000. Now let's look at the numbers, because remember, at this point, we've been on the webinar for exactly 1 hour. You should feel like an expert by now, okay? Understanding all the numbers that we went over. So now we're just gonna go to the point right away, okay? So here, Oaklawn, location, and then livability score, 78. So it is really, really good. The only thing that is not that great is employment. So that means it's a D minus. There are not many sources of employment. That's the only drawback. But let's just go to the conclusion right here. So I'm going to scroll down very fast to look at the numbers. I want to look at the numbers. So this is a B area. We recommend flips. Population growth is very stable. Income is about the median. So you see what we're mentioning, median. We're never mentioning average, okay? Remove that word from your real estate dictionary. Don't use average because your numbers are gonna be not right. Occupancy for owners is high compared to renters. Vacancy is low, so that's awesome. Let's look why this is a flipping market. Check this out, friends. The first number that you need to look at, months of housing supply. So assuming there are no new properties coming for sale into Oaklawn, the entire inventory is going to be gone in 3 months. So properties are moving like hotcakes. So over about 50 properties a month, okay? But based on the inventory, the active ones, we're going to run out of inventory in 3 months. So now the sweet spot, less than 88. Now let's look at how many, or 76. It's a flipping market, but look at these. Whoa, 164 flips for condos. Now let's just take a quicker dive into these guys, because my first initial assumption was it's a flipping market for single family homes, but guess what? I did not look at the column in the middle, which is condos, townhomes, duplexes. The properties are even moving a lot quicker. So everything will be gone in 2.72 months, which if you look at it, there's not much of a difference, right? So it's about 3 months. But why are there so many flips for condos versus single family homes? Very simple, friends. The answer is right here. Sweet spot to buy. I mean, if you're going to do a flip for a condo, the cool thing is that you can do about 2 or 3 flips for a condo versus 1. Does that make sense? Purchase price is the key. So the entry barrier to do flips in Oaklawn, it is so low for condos. And yet, there's a huge demand for condos. So why would you do a flip for a single family home where you can do 2 or 3 flips for the same kind of money? Does that make sense? So that is the reason why most people are attracted to do flips for condos. Number one, entry barrier is low. The purchase price is low. Number two, they're moving very fast. So there's a great demand for condos in Oakland, and they stay in the market for about 3 months. Okay, so they're moving fairly fast. So 164 flips. So that is just huge. Okay, so that's an example of a hot rental market. Okay. Are there any questions on the line? Well, there's another question. How does the software evaluate B versus C areas? So we look at the livability score. Anything over 70%, it's a B, BA. I mean, between 70 to 80% for the livability score, 70 to 80, it's a B. So all the way to the top. Anything over 80 is A. Anything below 70 is C. So if I just go all the way to the top, that's how you can rate the areas. Okay, between 70 and 80, it's a B. Below 70, it's a B minus, C plus. Okay, so that's how we rate the areas, B, C. Okay, now another question. Can't see the screen you're talking about. Okay, so I cannot go back to that. Are there any other questions on the line? So remember, let's just quickly summarize what we just talked about in the last hour, okay? I want to make sure that all of you understand. One of the first mistakes investors make is investing in the wrong areas. So that's got to stop, friends. You've got to know the areas like the back of your hand, okay? And you need to start with radius of 10 to 15 miles where you live. And based on that, analyze every single neighborhood in DealVault and then print that out, okay? Put a sticky note next to it to know what type of markets are around you. What's the sweet spot to buy? Are they B, C areas? All the main stats, the statistics that we talked about, put them on a sticky note. That's going to be so powerful, friends, okay? And second of all, make sure that you identify the top rental markets for the B areas or C areas and the top flipping markets for B and C areas. It is so simple. In DealVault, just select B and then cash flow or flip, and then sort by the purchase price if it's a flip, or by the rental income if it's for cash flow. Okay, very simple. We identified 6 top rental markets. I'm going to repeat them. Number 1, Berkeley. Number 2, Hillside. Number 3, my mom went blank. I tried to remember, but one of them was Streamwood, Allsip. And that's homework for you, friends. Make sure that you do that for the B areas, C areas, identify all the top rental markets. So what does that mean? You want high rents, low purchase price. Flipping markets. You want to get into the flipping market for properties whose price is below 200,000, okay? That's simple. Are there any other questions on the line? So what I would like to do now, if there are no further questions, I want to give you, if you don't have access to Chicago DealVault, I want to give it to you for free for the next 30 days. And I'm going to throw a couple of bonuses for you, okay?